Hi everybody, my name's Frank Milisi, and before we get started I just want to give a little bit of a disclaimer so I don't sound like a self-absorbent ass, as I would say. This Tech Talk in no way insinuates that I'm a great engineer. I believe one of the great features of actually being an engineer is that you're always learning and developing. And that being said, these are 5 traits that I think make somebody a great systems engineer. But first, who am I? So, like I said before, my name is Frank Milisi. I'm a systems engineer out of Boston, Massachusetts. I work at a financial company, that's right, Boston. I've been in 7 years in tech, and 5 of those years have been in virtualization, so I am no way a titan of the industry. And I am an active Boston vMug member. I also have a blog, controlaltinsert.com. It is not porn, even though somebody has tried to buy it off me for that particular reason. It is not porn, and I am VM_FrankM on Twitter. So why this talk? And I was thinking about this when I put in my tech talk. I've never really presented before at a conference like this. I put in my tech talk and I was like, what's a cool subject to go to? And I put this in and I was like, there's no way it's gonna get accepted, and it did. So I was like, oh, okay, so why this talk? First off, this stuff is hard. And that's why we love it. It is hard to be motivated, it is hard to be enthused about your job on a consistent basis. And the second thing is, there is no self-help book that can teach you how to be motivated or driven. Regardless of what the back page says on it, there is no self-help book that can help you be a motivated and driven person. One thing that is really important is the understanding of the technology and the knowledge that a good system engineer has. And honestly, this might be one of the most least important things of a systems engineer. We'll kind of get through that in a little bit later. But first, learning different perspectives is a very unique quality for a systems engineer. You have to be able to take 4 or 5 different opinions and perspectives and really put them into your own one final perspective that really you think makes the difference. Taking all of everybody's advice and giving your own conclusions on that advice is something that not everybody has the stomach to do. Some people think that it's all their problem, it's all their solution that will fix the issue. Learning all the time, this is pretty clear, right? I mean, learning all the time. You learn every way you can, home labs, books, everything like that. This is one of the reasons why I personally got into technology, and a lot of systems engineers really strive to learn every possible thing. I'm under the impression that if I don't learn a thing a day, I need to switch a company. I need to go to a new place, because if it's really that bad that I didn't learn one single thing that whole day, it's really not worth me to be there anymore. And great systems engineers will know that, because they'll be writing blogs, they'll be reading white papers, they'll be listening to vBrownBag podcasts or Tech Talk videos. Next thing is asking why. And I'm not gonna lie, this is really annoying when my 5-year-old asks me this. He asks me this every time, and I'm contradicting myself, because this is the one thing that really is the shovel to get to the pay dirt as to what being a system engineer is, and learning about different things is asking why. Really gives you the portal to everything that you want to learn. The next trait that we have is troubleshooting. This seems pretty obvious, but yet still not one of the most important features of a systems engineer, even though it sounds kind of ridiculous that I would say that. Knowing the resources and know how to exploit them. Know the white papers, know where to get the solutions to your problem. Knowing how to really reach out to your community and getting the resources, whether you know somebody who wrote the original vSAN or whether you know somebody who is really great at Power CLI. Obviously knowing the tech. Right? And I'm not talking about knowing the tech as, oh, I know what Zerto is, or I know what VMware is. I'm talking about really, really knowing the tech. And once you really know the tech, you are the solution. You are the resource to the actual troubleshooting problem. And a great systems engineer really can be leaned on in that perspective of actually knowing what to do in a particular situation that other people might have to go to VMware support or EMC support for, or Zerto support, whatever vendor is your choice. And this is probably the hottest one for me, is knowing when to call in your cavalry, right? A great systems engineer wants to work on an issue all the time and really, really get to the issue and not have to lean on somebody else for it. Even though that they know it'll be detrimental to their company, they stop and they call the cavalry in, or the tech support, even though it might hurt a little bit of their pride. A great systems engineer knows that it's more important than your pride to actually get the problem solved and to actually know when to cut it off. And as a side note, this is actually a pretty good tell from a help desk person, for example, that you know that they're going to be a great systems engineer, is that they will never escalate that ticket to you, no matter how much you ask them to escalate the ticket, and it's out of their scope of work. This is one thing that I look for a lot of help desk people, that they want that ticket, and even when they pass that ticket on, they follow that ticket all the way through. That's a great trait for an engineer, is knowing when to call the cavalry, but on the other hand, wanting to work on the problem and be resourceful and actually learn everything about the problem that happened. The next trait is owning the failure, figuring out what failed. And I'm not talking about phantom fails, I'm not talking about a fail on the side, I'm talking about actually pinpointing the issue itself. I'm not saying, oh, it was the server, it was a DIMM that was bad or something along those lines. I'm talking about pinpointing and say, well, what was bad? Was it the DIMM slot? Was it the motherboard itself? What needs to be replaced? That's just an example of it. Do a solid and honest post-mortem. This is probably the hardest one because it will involve, if you're an infrastructure engineer, actually throwing yourself under the bus on a pretty regular basis, right? And doing a solid and honest post-mortem it's a hard thing to do, especially when you say what I did 3 months ago is something that caused this outage today or caused this issue today. A great systems engineer will put himself out there and not put other people out there, for example. Don't throw your colleagues under the bus, obviously. Throw yourself under the bus. So doing a solid and honest post-mortem is definitely important to actually owning the failure, and system engineers know how to do this very well. They can go and say, this is exactly what happened, what I did wrong, this is how we're going to fix it in the future. And looking for advice. You have some people, when I first got into the field, that would not look for advice, they just go to the websites, they go to blogs, they go to white papers and try to figure it out themselves. But a systems engineer, a really badass systems engineer, knows when he doesn't know something. He goes and looks for advice. He goes and asks for a different opinion, or he looks for a different perspective like it was in the last slide. This is the hardest one. This is definitely the hardest one, is honesty. It's, everybody likes to think that they're the most honest person in the world, but when you actually look for it from the outside, it's not necessarily the truth. They may be honest with good intentions, but people don't really know their skill level, and you figure that out. I mean, well, obviously I'm a little bit of an example of this. I like to know my skill level, but you really need to know your skill level. We've all been on that sales call when somebody has just been blowing smoke. You got a sales engineer who's not really technical, but reads all the, the company papers, and somebody calls them out on one thing, and the whole thing just goes right down the tubes, right? They're not being honest with their skill level. A great systems engineer knows when he can stop, and knows when he can keep going, and knows when he needs help. And regardless, it's okay not to know something regardless of the outcome, right? A great systems engineer will tell you, I do not know this issue, but I know where to find it, right? There's no excuse to blow smoke into a situation that's already on fire, especially when you know that you're going to get caught in the back end. They're going to catch you eventually and say, you know what, you did not know the solution to this problem. So it's okay not to know something. But also be confident about your ability. Know your skills. Your skills are valuable to you. That is what makes you a valuable person of that company, is that you know your skills and you are confident about your ability. There's nothing more warming to the heart when a great systems engineer comes up to you and says, you know what, this is the exact issue that you have and this is the problem for it. And they come up to you and they don't have any question in their eyes. And that really makes you feel like this guy knows what he's talking about. And that's the confidence you should present as a really badass systems engineer. This is the most important one, actually. After all the other ones, this is probably the most important one. And this doesn't mean working an extra hour on Saturday or working a weekend or taking an on-call. This is truly being committed in yourself. And I'm not saying 100% committed in yourself. I think that's a little greedy. I'm going to say 90% committed in yourself, right? Committed in yourself as you take that PTO time, right? You know when the family is more important than the work at that point, but also you know that you need to go to work and you need to figure out that issue so you can better your career as well. There's a very smart person who said, it goes family, friends, education, and then work, right? So 90% committed in yourself is, I think, a pretty good number. And the rest of the 10% is commitment to others, right? Be that mentor. Somebody who is committed to others is really the spearhead of an engineering team. They really can make a team into something great, whether they just got in there in 1 minute or they just got in there, 2-3 years ago. One of those things that really sticks a badass systems engineer from all of others is to take those greener colleagues and those newer people in tech and really take them under their arms. You don't have to be a manager to do that. Not all managers are leaders. A good systems engineer is a leader, even though he does not have a manager title in front of his name or after his name or a PhD or whatever it is. Really investing in your company with that extra 10%, but more importantly, investing in the people around you in that company is really what makes the difference in a badass systems engineer. You can know all the tech in the world, and you can be a systems engineer. But you need to be committed in yourself and others in order to be a truly badass systems engineer. And before I stop, I think I've got a couple minutes here, it's just one thing is that everybody needs a mentor, but not everybody can be a mentor. Right? I've had some fantastic mentors, and I have the privilege of working with them now, and they keep me consistently learning or preparing for TechTalks at vBrownBag, right? Take somebody who you think has potential. Take them under your arm and teach them everything that you can possibly know, because that is the next generation of tech, is the people that you are bringing up. Now, they might learn different perspectives from what you teach them. Whatever you teach them might not be the exact right thing, but at least somebody is taking an investment in their future as well as their own. And just to kind of close out here on that point, is that when you commit to others, it really fast tracks your career, even though that might not be what you're looking for. Right? When your manager or your CTO sees you actually taking others under your wing and really pushing that team forward, even though you don't have that per se responsibility or pay grade, it really helps you in your career balance as well, even though that might be a second or third thought behind you. That being said, I want to thank you for attending this Tech Talk, and I hope you guys have a nice VM world.